What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Sailor Turn Gamer, and we are back in the building, coming at you with another Anthem video. Yep, today we're doing something a little bit different. This video is incredibly long, so I understand if you don't want to stay all the way through, but I will be leaving in the comment section below, as well as the description box, a timestamp directly correlated to the summary section, where I begin to just talk about my overall thoughts and opinions, and I summarize the highlighted portions that I took from Jason Schreier's article. But yep, today we're going to be talking about Jason Schreier's article that was posted today. It's a very lengthy read. If you want to read that, be sure to check the description box below and check that out and enjoy it in full capacity throughout the video. I'm going to go through and take some highlights of that, talk about those things. I learned a lot of stuff reading this article, and if you guys want to check it out, you can learn a lot as well. And if not, don't worry, I'm here for you. You guys can learn exactly what I learned from this and just get some understanding around what happened with Anthem, and hopefully we can get a better idea of where they're going forward with this. If you guys enjoy this particular style of way I'm trying to do new videos, be sure to let me know in the comment section below, and if you actually watch the video all the way through, I definitely appreciate it. But again, be sure to check out the timestamps for the summary. And yeah, guys, enjoy the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Alright, so let's get into the talk. Like I was saying, we are just going to start off and skim through this article. It's a pretty lengthy read, but let's find out what Jason Schreier knows as he goes on to discuss how BioWare's Anthem went wrong. I want to comment on this because I create so many videos talking about ways that this game can be changed, and I am on Reddit and I'm on various Facebook groups as well as different Discords, and I dive deep into this world of Anthem, and the player base all has their own ideas on what's going on with the game, but we got an inside scoop here. Man, so to start this thing off, we're already getting, this game wasn't even supposed to be called Anthem. Just days before the annual E3 convention in June of 2017, when the storage studio BioWare will renew its newest game, the plan was to go on to a different title, Beyond. They even printed out Beyond t-shirts for the staff. Now that's something I didn't even know, so that alone is interesting. I know it's just a name change, but that actually said something, seeing that they had t-shirts printed out with this particular logo on it. And we find out that less than a week before the press conference in Los Angeles, BioWare's parent company EA came down and said that securing the rights to that would be too difficult, so they changed it to Anthem. And everybody was like, man, it didn't make any sense. So let's move on a little bit. Anthem launched in February 2019. We all know that. Everybody really wanted this game to be awesome. I mean, the grade on it was a 55 from Metacritic, which is incredibly low. And I mean, call it what it is. It's a flop. It's a definite flop. So as we go through, and I'm sure there's going to be some interesting things, dozens of developers, many of them decade-long veterans, they left BioWare over the past 2 years. Makes you wonder why that happened. Some of who have worked at BioWare for the longest running office in Edmonton talk about depression and anxiety. That is something that cannot be ignored. Depression and anxiety is a real thing, guys, and more importantly than that, well, not more importantly, but just think about it. If these guys are depressed and these guys are developing symptoms like anxiety, what is going on there? What is going on? This stuff is not only affecting them, it's affecting the game, it's affecting our outcome, and it's affecting us. I mean, stress can lead to so many things, and for us players to be the ones that are experiencing this gameplay, that definitely has something to do with it. So it's pretty harkened in itself. As we go through and they begin to highlight some other things on Anthem, they talk about BioWare's magic being ran out. Dylan in late 2012 and 2013, while finishing up the Mass Effect trilogy, BioWare's director Casey Hudson and a small team of longtime Mass Effect developers, they worked on a project that they hope Bob Dylan of video games would be able to change. As we go through, I want to scroll down to some of the good stuff. Also, guys, I'm just skimming through this so we all can get an understanding of some things that we didn't know. Like I didn't know about the name change. But if you guys want to check this out, you can check the description box below. I'm gonna have a direct link to Jason Schreier's article posted that just released today, and you guys can read this entire thing for yourself if that's something you guys actually want to check out. Anthem was always envisioned as an online multiplayer game, but it wasn't always a looter shooter, the kind of game where you endlessly grind missions for new weapons. This is a big deal in itself. So according to some of the developers that worked on it, this wasn't supposed to be a looter shooter. And fast forward to now, we all know that there's problems with the loot system in itself. That's a big deal. At some point they pivoted from saying, hey, let's make this an online multiplayer game, to, hey, let's try to make this a looter shooter. I don't know what happened, but as we begin to unravel this article, maybe it goes into depth talking about that. But when we see that we have a product that is clearly unfinished, and we have a product whose loot system does not work, the loot system doesn't work, the crafting system doesn't work, and this is probably why. I mean, it wasn't even supposed to be a looter shooter. In these early versions, let me keep going. In these early versions, the idea was that you embark from a city and go out on expeditions with your friends, staying out in the world as long as you could survive. And some of that is what this game is now. You do go out from a city and you do go on expeditions with your friends. You can stay out, but there's no emphasis on survival. And this kind of reminds me of that old footage that we got from a couple of years ago by now, the E3, showing that gameplay that looks drastically different from what we do now. It looks like the build that they probably had in mind. Let's see. You will use your exo robotic suits and fight monsters with melee and shooting attacks, which we do now, but the focus was less on hoarding loot and more on seeing how long you could survive. This was a multiplayer. This game was supposed to be a multiplayer survival thing. And as you see, they transitioned to this looter shooter genre that they're not ready for. One mission, for example, was you might take you and your squad to the center of a volcano. Kind of sounds like Heart of Rage, where you'd have to figure out why it was erupting and kill some creatures and fight your way back. That was the main hook, said Anthem's developer. So this was supposed to be what seems to be the makers of a survival game. As we come back and talk about it, along the way you can scavenge yourself in alien ships and parts and bring them back in your base in order to upgrade your weapons and enhance your suits. This sounds like an interesting concept for a game. It would be awesome to have that, but this also lets us know that these guys are pivoting in a completely different direction, and something happened and they completely turned around their entire process to shake things up to make this game something that it wasn't even supposed to be. What remains unclear during the process is how many of these ideas and prototypes would actually work at scale. Dynamic environments and giant creatures might perform nicely in a controlled environment, but will Anthem's team really be able to make those features work in an online open gameplay by thousands and thousands of people? They never made it that far with the idea, and yet they pivoted over to something that they weren't prepared for. That's what I'm getting from this. BioWare's veterans like to describe Casey Hudson's Mass Effect team as the Enterprise from Star Trek. They all did what the captain said, and they were laser focused on a single destination. Still, members of Anthem's team say they remain unhappy. That's a big deal. Look, if these guys are unhappy and they're working on a product for millions or thousands of players to enjoy, it's going to be hard to be able to make this product if they're stressed, if some of the members of the team are fulfilling like thoughts of anxiety. These guys are unhappy. That affects their work. That affects the product that we get. We have already learned that they completely transitioned from this online multiplayer survival type gameplay to an online gameplay system where it's looter shooter focused, and the loot isn't the way it's supposed to be. This potential that this game has is still there, but as we're learning, there's been pivots, there's been reports of the team being unhappy. EA had these team reports. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit right here. Dragon Age Inquisition shipped at the end of 2014 to critical acclaim, and many of those developers moved on to Anthem, where they found a team full of high hopes and ambitious ideas. They started off really, really great. EA had these team health reports, said one, And then Anthem's morale was amongst the highest in all of EA. It was really quite good for a while. Everyone there saw so much potential in these early prototypes. Those ideas that they started off with, it sounds like these guys were really, really, really happy about them. So it's good to see that they started off great, which is kind of the way that you would think most game developers and most games start off with. The morale is something that should be high when you start off with it before changes begin to happen. So as we go down through this development process, through this article, let's continue to learn more about what we're getting our hands on right here. As development progressed, it became clear that some of Anthem's team's original ideas either wouldn't work or they weren't quite solidified enough to be implemented. Okay, here's an example that we're getting. Take traversal, for example. The mandated was that Anthem's world would be massive and seamless, but how could you get around? The team played around with prototypes, exploring different ways in which your exosuit can move vertically across the world. Remember, they talked a lot about verticality. Now, verticality in the game is something that does exist. I would say there's a limit, but I would say the limit is something that is very difficult to reach. I find myself being able to get around through combat very accessible. There are changes that I would like to see, but for a long time they thought it'd be climbing up the sides of mountains and ledges, which would sound kind of cool, but they couldn't get that quite right. Understand that. Early iterations of flying, which developers say was removed and re-added to Anthem several times, were more like gliding, and members of the Anthem team say it was tough to get the system to feel all that fun. Every time they changed the traversal, it meant changing the world design, flattening and stretching terrain to accommodate with the latest movement styles. There were experiments with procedural encounters. Highlight that, make sure you guys are on track. Where dynamic creatures and environmental hazards would spawn randomly from the world. These sound like the cataclysms, but they weren't working too smoothly. Yeah, we can see that. That is something that still doesn't work. The fact that the Anthem of Creation spawns these enemies that are not creative. They're essentially the same enemies that we have, but it's not even spawning like different races of different enemies at random. It's batches of the same kind of enemies. But, that seems as though what he's talking about. That took a long time, said one developer. The game was super reliant on this procedural system that just wasn't fun. Okay, also at this point the story started to change drastically as we got one of the worst stories I think BioWare has ever produced, in my opinion. It was short. They stretched out portions of it to accommodate the runtime. There was a lot of padding in certain areas of the story. In early 2015, veteran Dragon Age writer David Gator moved on to Anthem, and his version of the story looked a lot different than the ideas in which they've been experimenting for the past few years. This sounds a lot like what happened with Bungie, but clearly worse. Gator's style was traditional BioWare, big complicated villains, ancient alien artifacts, and so on. I think Gator's style is what most of the players that initially hopped over to this game expected from BioWare. They expected this type of story. Your complicated villains, your alien artifacts. We expected something that would be great. What we got was, in my opinion, mediocre as far as the story, but that's up for debate. If you guys think something different, let me know in the comment section below. There was a lot of resistance from the team who didn't want to see the sci-fi Dragon Age type of story. Okay, let's continue to scroll down. When asked for the comment on this, Gator said in the email that when he started on the project, Anthem's design director pushed him in the science fantasy direction. He was fine with that, but fantasy is his comfort zone. It was unclear at the outset that a lot of opposition changed from the rest of that. Okay, let's scroll down even more. Let's see, as we continue to read, I want to know more. We already discovered this wasn't supposed to be the name of the game in itself. This wasn't even supposed to be the type of game that it is, which explains why the loot system is just not working properly. The Cataclysm system, he didn't specifically say Cataclysm, but it seems as though they're alluding to either that or just the Anthem of Creation in itself wasn't even working properly. And it seems as though it still isn't working up to their vision, in my opinion, because we're not getting a variety of monsters. We're not getting a variety of creations when these things actually appear. So that's something in itself. Look at this. BioWare studio leadership had to focus much of its attention on Mass Effect Andromeda, a game that was causing headaches for just about everyone, who's rapidly approaching release late set in its stone. Jeez. Put it another way, Anthem might have started looking like it was on fire, but Andromeda was nearly burnt to the ground, which we all know Andromeda didn't go the way that it was expected. And so while these guys were trying to put out this Andromeda fire, Anthem was already dooming itself from the start. As it turned out, Anthem was not the charm. Using Frostbite to build an online action game, which BioWare has never done before, led to a host of problems for its designers, artists, and programmers. Makes sense, right? Sometimes you work with something you've never done, you're prone to make mistakes or prone to have accidents. Throughout its early years in development, Anthem's team realized that many of the ideas they'd originally conceived would be difficult, if not impossible, to create on Frostbite. This makes you question the engine. Geez, a former BioWare developer said, "Frostbite is full of razor blades." Now, if that doesn't speak a lot, so they're having issues, and they currently have issues with Frostbite itself. It's just not looking too good, right? From the beginning, Anthem's senior leadership made the decision to start from scratch for a large part of the game's technology, rather than using all the systems the company have built for Inquisition and Andromeda. Makes you question a lot of things, right? I can't really speak for Andromeda, but I thoroughly enjoyed Inquisition. I've played that game numerous times. And who's to say, what would have Anthem looked like if it was running on the same system that they built Inquisition on? It really makes you wonder, it makes you scratch your head when you think about that. Hey, the inventory system that BioWare had already designed for Dragon Age on Frostbite may not stand up in an online game, so Anthem's team figured they need to build a new one. Towards the end of the project, they started complaining. This was a complaint. Maybe we would have gone further if we had Dragon Age Inquisition stuff. This is exactly what I just said. If they used that, look, I'm not a developer, but from someone on the project, this is their thought. But they were also just complaining about the lack of manpower. If they were complaining about the lack of manpower that they had back then, imagine what the manpower looks like right now. The game's already been released. We've had 2 patches down, right? They're probably down to a skeleton crew. It's unfortunate if that's true, and I hope it's not. And I'm sure those guys are working really, really hard, but to get this game in a different place, in a better place, it just sounds like it's going to be tough, man. It sounds like it's really, really going to be tough. And I hope that they do, because I really, really enjoy this game. Like, immediate following sentence. It often felt to the Anthem team like they were understaffed. Understaffed is going to give you a poor product, especially when you pile on the fact that, again, these guys said at certain points during this development process they were unhappy. At certain points they were developing symptoms of anxiety and depression, topped with the fact that these guys are understaffed. Like, this is going to put out a product that is not to their liking, which affects the player base, because we are going to not only get an unfinished product, but a product that is produced to give you 55 scores on Metacritic. Now, I'm going to say, like, Metacritic isn't the end-all be-all, but it's not a bad thing to take opinions from someone else who's, took some time to play the game. And if anyone is taking time to play the game, I think we can all say that Anthem isn't in a good place, and is not in a place where you can feel like, wow, this part is bad, but at least we have a solid foundation. Like, I don't know if you want to call it solid. There are things that this game can build on, but there's just so much wrong with it. And we're getting a lot of inside information right now through this article that's letting us know that everything wasn't peaches and cream, man. Everything was not peaches and cream. Look at this. When a BioWare engineer had questions or wanted to report bugs, they usually talked to EA Central Frostbite team. Within that system that actually happened. Let's see. After all, the role-playing bang, EA, how much your money in the studio is going to make. All of BioWare's best-laid technological plans could go away if they weren't getting help they expected. This is tragic stuff, man. We're moving on to 2016, right? This is a pre-production phase. Let's see if we can get some more information. Look, one former BioWare developer said they and some of their co-workers would bring up these concerns to directors only to be ignored. So these guys had issues, And it seems like the leadership just ignored them. I mean, this is the inside information that we're getting. These guys were getting information. These guys had questions, and they were just getting completely ignored. It's like, what are you supposed to do as a developer if you're talking about making changes to the game, and then these people aren't? They're not even helping you. These guys, they're ignoring you. Look, you come to management saying, look, we're seeing the same problems with Inquisition and Andromeda, where design wasn't figuring things out. It's really getting late in the project, and the core of the game isn't defined. Basically saying, look, hey, the same mistakes are happening again. Did you see this in the last time? Can you stop this? And they just get dismissed. These guys are they would literally bring up issues that happened in their other mistakes or other eras in previous games, and these guys were getting ignored. Not only does that suck for them, but again, I can't harken on this enough. This sucks for us, and this is why us as a player base. Like, I'm gonna say, I thoroughly enjoy Anthem. I was streaming the game 5 hours last night, and I have fun. I have a fun time playing it, but I'm not out here spending my coin or spending my actual money on silly stuff in the game, like buying 61,000 coin worth, or using my own money or microtransactions for this game for armors that should be in the game. I'm not going out of my way to do anything extra in the game. BioWare needs to get this message across that if they don't want this game to die, they need to make serious changes, and they need to admit to the community in itself. Like, we're getting this article through Jason Schreier, but we need to hear this from their mouth on one of their live streams saying, hey, we messed up. Maybe don't go in this much depth if you don't want to, but we need to hear from them that they messed up and this is how they're going to fix it. Because this information that we're receiving, it's so nice to know this, but it's just unacceptable on BioWare's part that all of this stuff could go on behind the scenes to their developers, and then they put out a product like this to us, and then they manipulate their fan base and their community by selling things in the store, by holding back 50% of the game, like, by holding all this stuff back and releasing it to us in sound bites saying, hey, buy this in 2 days or else it's going to disappear. Buy this in 1 day or else it's going to disappear. Hey, we're going to put out this system that's going to change the game, even though it's not, because we're just going to give you the crappy stuff in the game that shouldn't be sold in the store. It's just pathetic. It's like you have competition out here. Like, everyone's like super excited for Borderlands 3. You got Division 2 out here, which is great. Like, it's great, by the way. Like, I love it. It's really great. You got Destiny 2 out here that's still holding it down. You got Destiny as an entire franchise that's holding it down. Like, say what you want about Destiny 1, and at the end of the day, it was good. Say what you want about the base game of Destiny 1. The base game of Destiny 1 wasn't that great, but it's better than the base game of Anthem. The base game of Division 1 had its flaws, but it was better than the base game of Anthem. Like, these games out here are setting the bar higher and higher and higher with each rendition, each patch that these games are doing, each rendition of the next game in the series that these guys, they're setting the bar. And like, to come out this week versus this other competition, it's just unacceptable. As we continue to scroll down, these guys, they're starting to talk about this too, right? Anthem had begun to naturally pick up ideas and mechanics from looter shooters like The Division and Destiny, although even mentioning Destiny was taboo at BioWare. Of course, these guys are going to get offended about that. Diablo 3 was the reference point. A few of the players that worked on the game said they've been trying to make comparisons to Destiny, and if they did that, they're going to get negative reactions from the studio, which is the silliest stuff ever. Like, I'm going on talking about this stuff, and it's like, how can you be upset with your developers for looking at a product that works? This product, Destiny, this product, Division, it works. It's been proven to be a success. So why are you going to shun these developers for saying, hey, I don't want to copy what they're doing, but we want to take that idea and put our own spin on it? That's what you should do as a creator. I may not be a game developer, but I'm a graphic design student, and my job is to create. My job is to look at things and be inspired by something that I see and take that inspiration and mold it into something that I can truly call my own. I've never developed a game in my life, but I would imagine that's probably something that you would want to do if you're building a looter shooter, even if you transitioned. And what we're learning is that it's kind of hard to start blaming some of these developers. We got to start looking at leadership. Of course, you know that. Like, it comes from orders come from the top down. Like, And what we're learning is just quite laughable and unacceptable. Like these guys, they looked at something that works and they got shunned for it. It's this is ridiculous. They were told quite definitively, this isn't Destiny, says one developer. But it kinda is. What you're describing is the beginning to go into that realm. They didn't want to make those correlations, but at the same time, you're talking about fire teams going off doing raids together, gun combat, spells, things like that. There was a lot of elements there that correlate, which is hilarious. They're like, this ain't Destiny, bro. This is Diablo 3. Okay, all right, but we got freelancers working together in a team. That's a fire team. We got strongholds. Well, that sounds a lot like a dungeon. Well, that sounds a lot like a Destiny mission. We got gun combat. Okay, Destiny Division. We got spells. Well, sounds like skills. Sounds like abilities. I mean, say what you will, the looter shooters are supposed to basically all be the same but different. And Anthem is a more fanatical, more fantasy, just a different type of Destiny, which is a different type of division. These games are all the same, so why not take things from each other to grow? I just don't get why leadership would not take this approach. And all of the suggestions, most of the suggestions that I have made in my Let's Talk series have been saying, hey, look at a product that works and try to make something in your own way based off of this concept that had already been proven to work and make it work. Recalibration stations, division, put it in your way, make it work. I don't know, new stronghold ideas, Destiny, take those from there, make it work. New mission types, take it from both, make it work. Like, what is so shameful about that? There's no reason to be shameful about this concept. Look, leadership didn't want to discuss Destiny. They found it hard to learn from Bungie's looter shooter. They found it hard to learn what Bungie's looter shooter did well. They need to be looking at games. We need to be looking at games like Destiny because they're at the market, said a developer. They're the guys who have been doing this thing the best. We absolutely should be looking at how they're doing things, which is common sense. And again, guys, I can't believe leadership told these guys to just no, just drop it. It doesn't make any sense. As an example, the developer brought up the unique feel of Destiny's large variety of guns, said something that Anthem seems to be lacking in large part because it was built by a bunch of people who had mostly made RPGs. They didn't really have the design skill to be able to do that. As we see, we got a product that has literally no design variation in the weapons, and you can say whatever excuse you want to make. You can say, hey, we got no design in the weapons because Masterworks are supposed to be that thing that pushes them over. Then why are Masterworks just reskins? And if they're going to do that, why aren't there more Masterworks? There should be, if they're going to have these generic weapons, you should be able to get Masterworks a lot earlier in the game, or Epic should be able to have this skin, or if they want to say that, you should be able to get Masterworks much, much earlier in the game. There should be 10 times as many Masterworks if these other weapons don't matter. I don't want to hear it's all about the abilities because it's unacceptable. Weapons, right now, on one of my builds that I'm working on right now in the game, my weapons for that, they're stat sticks. They're stat sticks, because I'm using my abilities. But I don't want my weapons to be generic. That takes away from that. It's so ridiculous, right? There just wasn't the knowledge base to be able to develop that kind of diversity, which I completely understand, right? These guys, they came up doing a completely different thing. You're building a completely different game that's new to what you've done on a completely new engine. Why not get outside help? Oh, why couldn't they get outside help? Because the leadership didn't want that. This is ridiculous. This is completely unacceptable. And this was 2016, guys. This is 2016. There was still time to make some of these changes. And remember, what we got in February was an unfinished product. Let's move on to the beginning of 2017. This is a very lengthy article, guys. I want to skim through some of this stuff as we begin to go through. Again, I'll leave a link in the description. You guys can check this stuff out if you want to check it out. I want to continue to skip through. One of our QA people have been playing it over and over again so they could get the flow of timing down. Person said that was involved. Within 30 seconds or so, the exosuit jumps off and glides off his precipice and lands. Okay, let's continue to skip through that. What the public didn't know was that, okay, there we go, that's some good stuff. What the public didn't know was that even Anthem was still in pre-production. Anthem was still in pre-production. Progress had been so slow that the demo was mostly guesswork. Wow. Team members say, which was why the Anthem that actually launched looked so drastically different than the demo. The team showed up in E3. That wasn't even what it was supposed to look like. They just kind of pulled some stuff together. Here we go. In the real game, you have to go through a mission select menu and a loading screen before you can leave your base in Fort Tarsus. In the demo, it all happens seamlessly. The demo is so full of dynamic environments, giant creatures, and mechanics that bear little resemblance to the final product, like getting on with the new loot system as you pick up rather than have to wait till the end of the mission. And we all know. I'm gonna scroll through and scroll past this part. We all know that the demo that we got, it was just not even close to the game that we got in the long run. And right now I'm at the point, and I think the developers and everyone else in the community probably share my mindset. We're at the point where we just want to see a better game. So I don't want to harken too much on this demo phase, because we all know we didn't get the product that we got there, right? Let's talk about what we can do to move forward, and let's talk about some changes that we may have noticed in this process, because there could be some nasty stuff. I want to continue to scroll down through this, and maybe we'll get some stuff as we continue to scroll through. We're towards the bottom of this. Let's see. We're gonna scroll all past that. Look at this. But I do want to highlight this specific little quote right here that he pointed out. I think there was an entire week where I couldn't do anything because there were server issues, said a BioWare developer. So this guy couldn't even do anything at work because there was a server issue. I mean, of course, he's living it up, getting paid, but he couldn't even do anything at work, which, I mean, that affects us. And again, there are moments where we just want to where I have wanted to just log in the game and couldn't even do anything. Now, this is something that I want to talk about this because I don't want to scroll through this particular part here. Just a couple months before Anthem shipped, a couple months, by the way, decisions were still being finalized and overhauled. At one point, for example, the leadership team realized that there was no place in the game to show off your gear, which is a problem for the game, and long-term monetization was all based on cosmetics. As we see, this game is supposed to be cosmetically focused, and as we talk about the Elysian chess system real quick, it's garbage. Like, where's the cosmetics? Anyway, okay, so you can spend money on fancy new outfits for your robot suit, which you sort of can, but the marketplace sucks. But who would even see them? The games in one city, Fort Tarsus, was privately instanced so that it could change for each player based on how much progress they made through the story. So the team brought on EA's Motive Studio in Montreal to build a launch bay, a last-minute addition to the game where you can hang out and show your gear to strangers. Man, the launch bay. Don't get me started on that. I've talked about this in a video as well. I want to go in and talk about this whole concept in other videos in the future. The launch bay sucks. It needs to go. My idea, in quick summary, was to turn the launch bay into a clan-based area. They could do that. Launch bay sucks anyway, as we just learned, as they already knew. The launch bay was an extra tack-on system that was added a couple months before the game. So 2 months before the game release, they decided, hey, let's add on this, excuse my French, shitty system so that to let players be able to see their customization. Scratch that. That whole thing needs to be scratched. They need to turn Fort Tarsus into a Destiny Tower system. It's already proven to work. If I don't know how difficult that is as a game developer, and if it is, I apologize. I've been playing the Division 2. The Division 2 does something in the game that I think is great, and that sets up this illusion of, to me, it's like an illusion of having a tower system in Destiny. Everyone has their own map. Everyone has their own little settlements, their own private area, their own Fort Tarsus, just like Anthem. But you can invite players to your game session, and they will enter your world, which to me gives the illusion that once you're in a settlement, once you're in Washington D.C., once you're in the White House, and you're in there with other players, it makes you feel like it's a Destiny Tower-like situation, but you're in their session. Okay, if you can't do that tower thing, do that. What's wrong with that? If I can't get 4 to 8 players in my actual like tower-like thing, let me invite my whole squad and let my squad go into my version of Fort Tarsus. So what if I'm at a point in the story where it spoils them? It happens. I was playing the Division. And I never did the Dark Zone missions because I wanted to wait till after I hit 30. So, but I was still able to go into the Dark Zone because I grouped up with someone who already did those missions. Now, to access some other features, I had to go back and do that quest, but I was still able to access it because I was in their world. Do that. Who cares? Tarsus is lonely, it's quiet, it sucks. First person sucks. Change that to third person. If they want us to be able to see our suits so bad, completely overhaul the launch bay and turn that into a tower-like situation, and just do something else before Tarsus for all I care. But this first-person point of view that you get in Tarsus, transitioning into a third-person point of view for 90% of the game, it's stupid. It just needs to go. Change Fort Tarsus to a third-person point of view. Turn that into a tower-like situation. And that could be one great step towards changing this game. I mean, I can't mention that's number one on my priority list to me. That this game just needs to be overhauled completely. If it takes weeks, days, months, overhaul it and let the community know what you're doing. Save this game. Look, let's continue to scroll down. We hear about big people. We hear about the big people. Said another developer who left. There's a writer. It's making big news, big waves, a lot of designers. See, people left. By the end of 2018, those who remained on Anthem wish they could have just stayed, wish they could have just had a few more months. So it sounds like the people that stayed with Anthem, they stayed because they enjoyed their work, maybe they enjoyed the game, maybe they believed in the potential, but they wanted more time to fix this game. And they said they wanted a few more months. Well, I know things changed a little bit when the game released. The game released in February. It's now March. It's been 1 month. I haven't seen anything significant that's changed. Well, what's the game going to look like in a couple months? Maybe that promise is making some changes is going to go through. But there's a lot of things in this game that need to change. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with looking at Destiny and looking at the Division and going, hey, I want to make something that's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Look, this is ridiculous. It became clear to everyone that the game wouldn't ship with much content, and so they came up with some artificial solutions that extended the campaign, like the Challenge of the Legionnaires. Oh my god, anybody that plays Anthem knows about the Challenge of the Legionnaires. I don't want to get into that too much, but it was clearly, if you didn't know, they're letting us know right here. Jason was letting us know this was clearly a tactic that was put into place to pad the runtime of the story because they didn't have a lot of content in the game. Completely unacceptable. What this crazy thing that we learned about here is that this mission was supposed to be time gated, and it was supposed to force players to wait days to complete it all. Fortunately, it was changed before launch. Shout out to that, but still unacceptable. This mission was controversial even within BioWare. They added this mission to pad the runtime, and they were going to time gate it. That is laughable. They were going to time gate it to where you couldn't even beat the story in a lengthy amount of time if that's what you wanted to do. It's unacceptable. There was no escaping EA's fiscal targets, and Anthem had already been in development for nearly 7 years. I hate to be this way, but at some point, you gotta address the elephant in the room. I always talk about improvements, ideas, suggestions, ways, and my goal is always to educate. But at some point, you gotta address the elephant in the room, and this elephant is getting real big. If there was one reason for BioWare staff to be optimistic, it was the fact that unlike the studio's previous game, Anthem had room to evolve. Of course, we got the Cataclysms. They have a roadmap, which I think a lot of this stuff in the roadmap is stuff that was supposed to be in the game. But they got room to grow. That's the only shining nugget we got. And look, we're talking about the launch of the game. Wow, this is so much stuff. But it looks like we're wrapping it up pretty soon. We're on to February 15th. Which is the launch of the game on EA's Premium Early Access. That was a whole issue in itself. As we see when the demo came out, and a lot of the stuff, these guys weren't even ready. I remember the audio drops. There were tons of audio drops, the long loading screens. We still have loading screens to this day. I mean, fortunately, they got rid of the loading screen for the Forge, but it still exists. We still have loading screens. If you go to the Forge after the mission, and then you decide, I'm going to go to Fort Tarsus or the launch bay after that, there's a loading screen. Still exists. But This the making of this game has not been something that we wanted to do. Here's something else I want to highlight right here. BioWare's former BioWare developer said they brought up the bigger picture concerns years before the game had shipped, and as an example, two developers brought up non-player character dialogue, which isn't the best in this game, right? Most of Anthem's story is told through conversations in Fort Tarsus and radio chatter through missions, yet the game strongly pushes you to team up with other players. It makes you wonder why. Again, there's this weird ratio of this 90% of experience of third person and then this one quiet isolated area in first person where they tell the story in these strange and interesting ways, but what it does is split the game. It gives you this one experience of making Anthem this single player experience like Dragon Age Inquisition or Mass Effect. But then they add this completely new looter shooter thing that we learned has just been started in the game into it. And it's like, what is going on? This is two different games. Anyone who's played an online game knows it's hard to pay much attention to NPC dialogue when you're playing with other people. Which is true, whether they're blabbing in their ear or rushing to hurry up and get to a next mission. It's like they could tell the story in so many ways, and it's like, why? Take notes. Just take notes. Come on, guys. In the weeks after launch, BioWare's Austin office began taking over the live service, as has always been planned, while Edmonton staff moved on to new projects like Dragon Age 4. It's the way it goes, guys, but it seems like it's like Austin's taking over, which we know, but this game, can it be saved? I don't know. Among those who remain at the company, there's a belief that Anthem can be fixed with a few more months and some patience from players. It will have some redemption story, and like Diablo 3 and Destiny and all that stuff. Yeah, I think Anthem might be the kick in the butt that BioWare leadership needs to see how you develop games to change their identity. I don't think so, but that's what the thoughts of a former BioWare developer. Like, I think that the state of this game, the way it released, this has to be the worst. Well, this is definitely the worst looter shooter to ever release. I personally, see if you're making this massive game and you have this vision for a game and there's all this content and stuff that you guys plan on doing, if there's a legitimate roadmap, I don't see anything wrong with that. If they go a la Division, or my thoughts on my standpoint on Destiny 2, like if they say, hey, this is the base game and there's a lot of other stuff we want to do to the game, here's a roadmap, we're going to work on this stuff because we didn't finish, but we're working on it and we're going to get this part done, I'm cool with that. But when you take this game and you give us the base game and then you purposely rip out so much of the content that already exists in the game, it's unnecessary. And that is what makes it so bad, and that's what's the shame. Maybe one day Anthem will morph into a great game. Definitely ain't today as of the making of this video. Here's an update at 11:30 a.m. today. Minutes after the publication of this article, EA and BioWare put up a blog post. In an apparent response, they sent over a bullet point summary of what was in this piece, although they did not have a chance to read the article before publishing their post, which is kind of funny. This post explains the lack of comment for our article based on an assumption of what the article is focused on. We choose to not comment or participate in this story because we felt there was an unfair focus on a specific team member and leaders who did their absolute best to bring up totally new ideas to fans. We didn't want to be part of something that was attempting to bring them down as individuals, so they didn't want to comment. It seems like they're just trying to stoke a fire. The struggles and challenges of making video games are very real, I believe that. But the reward of putting something behind we created into the hands of players is amazing. People in this industry put so much passion and energy into making something that's fun. We don't see the value in tearing another one down or another's work. We don't believe in articles that do that are making an industry and craft better. Well, I don't know. My thoughts is that this article shed a lot of light on the situation and what's going on with BioWare and how ridiculous this whole process of what happened with BioWare is. So I want to officially give my summary because I know this is a lengthy video, and if you guys watched the intro or stayed on to this part, you guys will know that this is the part where I'm giving my summary. I wanted to make it a little bit easier for those of you guys that wanted to check out the video and just get a little bit of thoughts on my thoughts on this whole article, and you maybe wanted to read it later. And if you didn't want to read it, I wanted to go through and just highlight some points that I thought I would, find interesting as we're reading this information live and talk about it. So, look, officially, my summaries on Jason Schreier's how BioWare's Anthem went wrong, and just this whole situation with BioWare, right? You guys know me by now. I enjoy the overall concept of Anthem. I enjoy the feeling that I get when I'm playing Anthem. But as we have learned, man, this game wasn't even supposed to be Anthem, right? And I feel that whenever I'm in Fort Tarsis. The launch bay wasn't even supposed to exist. And I feel that whenever I'm in the launch bay. And Bastion, which is the land that we exist in when we're roaming in free play, when we're completing missions, when we're doing strongholds, when we're doing contracts, that's the land, Bastion. Some just don't feel right about it. The demo that we were privy to see at E3 was 2017. That was something that was put together unknowingly. They tried their best to put something together, and that's why we didn't get. That's why the game that we have now is more than just a visual downgrade. It's completely different because that was just something they put together. This game is supposed to be called Beyond. Maybe this is what Fort Tarsis is supposed to be. Like, hey, this experience of going into first person, going out, doing these things solo, hearing this story, all sounds like a great concept. Maybe this was the concept of Beyond. We even learned that overall, they started this game off as a game where you could group up with players, but you will be going through, collecting stuff, seeing how long you can survive some type of futuristic sci-fi, science, technology-based survival-like game. Was transitioned at some point in, I think, 2016 to a looter shooter, which none of them at the studio were very familiar with doing, which affected the variety of weapons that we got, which is why we don't really have any weapon variety. Yeah, we got Masterworks, but that explains why everything else is just there, and the Masterworks are just reskins because they never did this before. This really isn't. Unfortunately, on some of the developers that were there, a lot of developers left over time, and the ones that were there, we learned that they called out this stuff that was wrong. They said, hey, there are bugs. Hey, these are some errors that we had in other games like Inquisition and other games like Andromeda, and like, hey, we're getting the same stuff here. Can we fix this? We need help. And they got ignored by leadership. We learned that the Frostbite engine that this game is based on, like, they weren't even familiar with that, and they had a hard time working with that system in itself. One of my biggest ways that I've been thinking to improve the game is to take concepts from other games that have been proven to be a success. Things like the recalibration station in Division 2. Things like the crafting system that exists in Division 2 or Division 1, a game that was already out when this game was in production. The mission structure, the weapon variety in Destiny, the character creation that exists, like the whole concept of building yourself up as a guardian in Destiny, the whole concept of building yourself up as a Division agent in Division. Take those aspects, become inspired, and put them in your own way. I've used that concept to think of a variety of changes that Anthem could do. And we've learned that I'm not the only one that thought about this. Even the developers thought about this. But why didn't we get that finished product? Well, that's sadly and unfortunately because they suggested these very things. But apparently the word Destiny was so blasphemous in the studio that it just couldn't even be uttered. They literally got shunned for even thinking about Destiny. Destiny was not the goal in mind when making a looter shooter. That wasn't the goal. It was Diablo 3. There's nothing wrong with Diablo 3. But when you're making this game and you're taking a lot of aspects from the looter shooter genre that the franchise, already did well. Why not start with that? We learned that most importantly, that the developers were unhappy. They were experiencing symptoms of anxiety. They were experiencing symptoms of depression. We learned that this is what was going on. This is how these guys felt. I don't know if any of you guys ever been depressed, ever had anxiety, ever been unhappy. I'm sure there are some people that are watching this video right now. You guys have been, and it's a real thing. And when this stuff happens to developers, this is what facilitates us getting a bad product. Not only did we get an unfinished game, we were left with something that has so much potential, and I don't know if it'll ever be filled in Anthem 1, which is very unfortunate, because now the game has been left in the hands of the developers in Austin, and not only throughout the process of the development was it dwindled down to somewhat of a skeleton crew. Who knows how many people are working in this studio. Everyone else that was even there with Anthem, they went on for Dragon Age 4. So it's like, what's going on? What are we supposed to do? I do not know, but what I do know is that I still believe in the best of this game. I have tons of suggestions that if anybody from BioWare finds this little bitty channel that is growing every single day, come on, man, just talk to me. Send your boy an email. Hit me up on Twitter. Comment on one of the videos. I have ideas. I know you guys do too. But the community that still loves this game, we want to see the best, and I want to see this game stick around. I want to see this game get better over time throughout the year, and I want to see this game make it to Anthem 2. I don't want to see Anthem as something that's just here and then gone. I think this game has the potential to be a franchise just as good as Division, just as good as Destiny, and if not, one day better. But right now, they got a lot of work to go to improve that. And I really hope that they don't put this as something in their past that they can just move away from, because there's a lot of players that have grown attached to the overall concept of a javelin. And I'll say this once, now and again and forever, there's no other game on the market like Anthem. No other game. Yeah. So that's my summary, and those are my thoughts of this entire article. I know it was a lengthy read. And I know this was a lengthy video, but anybody that actually watched it all the way through to get my overall thoughts as going through the article, through certain portions, I really appreciate it. For anybody that decided to even click on the video and get to the point in the intro where I said I was going to go to the summary portion, I definitely appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you guys for making it this far. Shout out to that. I really appreciate that. Be sure to like, share the video. It helps us grow. It gives more people an opportunity to get their hands on Sailor Sun Gamer and the content that we create. And be sure to subscribe and join the fleet. That helps us grow. It helps more people get an opportunity to know who we are, and it helps more people to get an opportunity to learn more about Anthem. I'm going to continue to cover Anthem, and whenever Dragon Age 4 comes out, we're going to be playing that as well. So stay tuned for that. I still love these type of games. I still love this game. So it's going to be a long, bumpy ride, but I'm going to be here for it because I love it. Those of you that have thoughts on this video, thoughts on the article, leave them below in the comment section. Again, if you want to read it yourself, be sure to check out the description box to get that dope information for yourself. We are 21 subscribers away as I'm making in this video from 100 subscribers. It's going to help us get our own URL, and it's going to get us one step closer to growing as a channel and growing as a content creator. I appreciate it. Again, guys, you guys have a fantastic day. This Sailor be out in the open ocean. Peace.